Hi, welcome back.
This is Miss Sasick and Miss Overlander with Native American Culture Lesson.
Today's guiding question is, what does Native American culture look like? And we're going to be going through different aspects of that with you.
Make sure you have your notes and your pencil ready.
It is believed that the first people came to North America from Asia. They walked over a land bridge over the Bering Strait, probably following their food. People who followed their food are called hunters, gatherers, and nomads. As these people spread out along the continent, they adapted or adjusted to their environment. About 15,000 years ago, they made their way to Virginia and settled in a site archaeologists call Cactus Hill. These nomads learned to plant maize, corn, which provided a reliable source of food. The population increased and people settled in permanent settlements. And you'll probably be familiar with this, as we talked several days ago about the theories of how the first peoples came to North America. This is showing you the land bridge theory. And here's the settlements that they would have settled. And here's a picture of Native Americans planting maize or corn.
So now we're going to go into Native American religion. So they believed there were many gods, and there were gods everywhere, and they painted or carved what they believed these gods look like on everyday items, like pots, on their shirts, on their sometimes often on their homes, on their shelters. Most tribes believed in a creator god, like there's one god to whom all lesser gods, all the lower gods, had to obey. So there was a creator god, and then there was the lower gods. There's a god of earth, a god of wind, a god of sky, and a god of fire. Those are just a couple examples. The earth gods were often, they thought of them represented in plants or animals, were closest to man, and were spiritual helpers. And they had shamans that were religious leaders who would pray and fast, kind of like you think of your priest or temple leader, and they would wait for the guardian spirit to speak to him, and he would make potions to cure disease. So he kind of had a double job. Not only he was your religious leader, but he was kind of like your neighborhood doctor. The number 4 was a very sacred and special number for Native Americans. So there's sacred places like burial grounds, and sacred objects, medicine bundle. Yes, your dried umbilical cord. I know that's totally gross, but for them that was very important to them. And the rattle from the rattlesnakes, those were very special to Native Americans. And names or special powers given for personal achievement. So you might have heard me say in class, that's my name, don't wear it out. Well, they believed, your name was very special and it had powers. So if you said the person's name a lot, it wouldn't be as special anymore. So you would reduce your powers. It would reduce the specialness or the powers of it. So here is the shaman. He is doing a ritual, helping the sick man in the background of this picture. Okay, and then of course, if you've seen Pocahontas, and we know Disney's not always correct, but you see how you have Grandmother Willow in the background. She is one of the earth gods helping her, and how nature speaks to the Native Americans. So you see how important that is. Okay, they believe illnesses were caused by a foreign object in a body, evil spirits in the body, and they would force it out by command or ask it to politely request it. Or they would do, if that didn't work, they just make the body just a miserable place to be. So a sweat bath, give you bad tasting medicine, and believed if you're putting things in your body, if your body's kind of miserable, then that evil spirit would extract itself from your body. Loss of your soul was another reason why they believed illness occurred. So they would lure the soul back in, make the body a nice place to live. So you have herbs to make, that smell good, or you eat good food to make the soul come back. Bad thoughts or bad deeds, they believe, cause illnesses and especially disobeying the gods. That makes sense. I know sometimes when I think bad things or something bad happens to me, I know I feel sick to my stomach afterwards sometimes too. And they protected babies. They kept them secluded or hidden at birth from the evil spirits because they were afraid the evil spirits would steal the babies away. And they used over 60 herbs to cure diseases, but did not know white man diseases. We're going to talk about that more in the future. They did not have the ability to fight off things like chickenpox or measles. So many of them died. So here you see, they hid away the babies. And I know we saw this in the last slide, but again, the shaman were trying to eradicate diseases by using many of their rituals.
Native Americans also had art, and that was very important to their culture. Animals are important because they believed that animals could protect you, and they painted animals on their teepees, on war shields, on their shirts. And the right to wear an animal symbol was given through a dream or by inheritance, and this was very special in their culture.
Okay, so I believe this is one of the war shields. You see many animals painted on there to protect that Native American. Here's an example of another one. And many symbols. We are actually going to be doing a project with a lot of these symbols, and you'll see many of them are animals, and you see some people in there as well. And we're going to learn about the significance of many of these symbols in the next class or two.
You can see that much of their art is tied to nature.
Okay. Conflicts. So Europeans value owning land, but to Native Americans, they believed that the land was belonged to the whole tribe. So Europeans were all about individualism and owning things, and Native Americans were more about sharing. So Native Americans sold the land to the Europeans, and in the future to the Americans. They believed they were selling the right to use the land, okay, at least temporarily. Now, you can see there obviously they didn't speak the same language, okay? Native Americans didn't, off the bat, know English, and the Europeans didn't know Native American languages. So you can see there was a language barrier there, and it caused to this conflict. So as you can imagine, if you thought somebody was borrowing something and then they ended up keeping it, that would cause you to feel very upset about that.
And so that was a cultural misunderstanding as well.
Here you go. You see the Europeans meeting with the Native Americans early on. And again, as you see, conflict over land. This is a later picture. It looks like 1800s, as you see the soldiers with shotguns chasing after the Native Americans.
Native Americans have also brought many contributions to our culture and our society. Words like tobacco, moccasin, hammock, and toboggan are all words we get from the Native American languages that were spoken, and these are things that were introduced to us by them. Also, the sport of lacrosse comes from Native Americans, as they were the first to play this sport and invent the ideas behind it. And food. 70% of our diet comes from Native American plants or foods that were grown in the ground by them. Potatoes, tomatoes, squash, beans, corn, and peanuts are all food that we get from Native Americans.
And we're going to talk more about this during Explorers, about how cultures including food, were exchanged between Native Americans and the Europeans.
Here's a picture of the tobacco plant, a picture of corn, beans, and squash.
Also known as the Three Sisters.
And moccasins.
Okay. And here is a sketch of Native Americans playing early lacrosse. Obviously much different than what you see today. Okay, so this is the end of our video. Please feel free to rewind and go back in case you missed something, and we will see you in class.